Madrid in the Champions League. I set off from Madrid on the Thursday morning at 10 a.m. and I didn't arrive back in Newcastle till 6 p.m. on the Friday. So, and I didn't do it on the cheap, I promise you. It was just delays. Or it wasn't one of the famous tickets that Gaza used to send Jimmy Five Bellies on when he used to send them to Rome. So yeah, but absolutely brilliant. Once you see the lads, it's like we've never been away from each other. The banter starts straight away. The crack's brilliant, and it's good because that night last Friday was lads from all different eras, parts of those entertainers, yes, the 90s, the early parts. You know, the most important one for me as a Newcastle fan, but I think Newcastle fans will agree with us as well, is someone like Brian Kilcline, because Kevin's always said he was the man who turned things around in terms of you know, what was coming in, what was happening when Kevin first arrived, the club going, you know, down towards the bottom of what's now the Championship, and players like Brian was a leader and he came in and he stopped that. We had a man in my team then, and so people like that. Then you've got, you know, your Liam O'Brien's, your Kevin Scott's, Quinny. I always love seeing Quinny. I always wind him up because obviously the age difference, and I was his apprentice, so to be doing these gigs alongside him, and then obviously the lads later on, Bez, Rob Lee, Steve Watson, Alan Thompson, Steve Howie, lads that we grew up together from the age of 9, 10, being in the centre of excellence, and Darren Peacock, Rule Fox. So it was brilliant, absolutely. And we all get on. We're from different parts of the country, and we came through different eras of the 90s, but the camaraderie still the same in that room behind the scenes before we went on stage was electric. It was buzzing. So yeah, I really enjoyed that.
So Nash, you together, obviously you mentioned a couple of the youngs that you come up with, Tomo and Robbie Elliott and Watto. Very important to you, obviously, great mates. But at the time, take you back to first Osvaldo Ardiles, and basically the lot of you got your debuts from him.
Well, not actually my debuts, Joe, to be honest. I mean, some of the lads did. Steve Howie and Steve Watson were a little bit different. It was the late, great Bald Eagle, Jim Smith, who gave us our debuts. And then Ozzy went on to give Tomo and Robbie Elliott, John Watson, lots of other youngsters ahead. Because Ozzy was in a tough predicament, it was before the Magpie group had got in charge, so John wasn't around. It was the old board, Gordon McKee was the chairman, etc. And so there was no money really. I mean, I don't know how many people in this room understand or know this story, but Ozzy Ardiles actually bought David Kelly for the football club with an interest-free loan. I'm not sure if it was 200 or 250,000 that were paid for David, but wherever it was, Ozzy bought him at the time on an interest-free loan, which when he got the sack, he got that paid back of Sir John. And I see quite a bit of Sir John still now. You know, love meeting up with him for a coffee, and he always said it was his toughest ever day as the chairman of Newcastle United when he had to sack Ozzy. It was the right thing to do, and Ozzy always says that. I still keep in touch with him. I was down at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium the other week for the Newcastle game, and Ozzy had a few drinks with Ozzy during the day, and he always says, of course, you know, he's very honoured that he was the manager, but knew that the results weren't going the right way. But I think he feels a bit proud that he played a big part in the youngsters that we all turned out to be. But not only we ended up being big players for the club when we eventually moved on, we went for big transfer fees in that era, not in the world today, but in that era. And yeah, so, and as I said, Sir John always says, a really, really nice guy. I mean, I remember Freddie Fletcher going to Ozzy's house in Jesmond to tell him he'd been fired. Ozzy offered Freddie a cup of tea and a full English breakfast. You know, I've been in management, and when I've been given that letter to say I'm fired, I want to punch the lights out of someone who's given us not offer them breakfast, that's for sure. So that just showed you. And but obviously we didn't know what was around the corner with Sir John. But then he made the master stroke of bringing Kevin back, and then they say the rest history, which you'll have an idea of that because you were around in the early 80s when I was just a young and stand on the terraces.
Thanks for that, like, Nash.
And you actually look better than me now. You look younger than me, Joe, so don't worry. Yeah, you've seen the impact Kevin made as a player, not just at the football club, but in the city. It lifted the city out, you know, because I first went in the 80s. 1980 was my first game, but when Kevin arrived, 82, 83, and just took the club by the scruff of the neck and took it to a new level. You've probably seen behind the scenes what he was doing in terms of the standards and what was expected then. Touching back on the 80s, my first, obviously, game as a Newcastle fan as an 8-year-old was 1980 in the Gallagher End with my brother and his pal. We didn't have a particularly good team in that year, I think, for people who might remember. I'm trying to look in the audience. Bill McGarry was manager. We didn't have a lot of money. In our front two that year was Bobby Shinton and Billy Rafferty. Not the same as Shearer and Ferdinand, that's for sure. And fair play to them, but we weren't a great team. And so, jump a few years, I'm manager at Birmingham City, and we've just had a win at home. And I've gone across to the boardroom to gloat a little bit because, especially when I was Birmingham manager, winning at home was few and far between. So I went into the boardroom, glass of red wine, and this guy come up, we start talking. He was really polite, nice guy. Oh, you Geordie born and bred, yeah, born in Walker, Banks of the Tyne, good chat. When did you first go? Oh, my first game was in 1980. We weren't very good. We had a front two with Bobby Shinton and Billy Rafferty, they were shit. And the guy leaned across the table, he says, nice to meet you, I'm Billy Rafferty. And he's a big lad, and I've since know through Harry Redknapp's a big friend of Billy's. Don't know where the link is, but I know Harry really well through my relationship with Jamie. We grew up playing in the England under-15s together, so we've known each other for many, many years. And so when I bumped into Harry a while ago, and I was like, oh, Billy Rafferty, and he was like, oh, he's a hard man, isn't he? I told him the story. He said, you're lucky you didn't escape with a broken nose. So that was thankful. But no, listen, when Kevin came back as the manager, it was revival number 2, wasn't it?
Brilliant. You just mentioned about England schoolboys, Nash. I mean, the first time I ever saw you, apart from when you come into the training ground, all them years ago, fucking hell.
What you was touching on then, because when I was about 13, 14, and I'd been in the Centre of Excellence, and I was starting to get recognised nationally because of the stuff with England schoolboys, I was getting big offers from like Man United. Sir Alex Ferguson came to my house in Walker, tried to introduce himself at the front door to my dad on a Saturday morning, who had his string vest on with egg yolk going down the middle with HP sauce and all that. So half the breakfast was down there. A proper working man who enjoyed his weekends. You know, all these other club Spurs. So what they used to do, when Joe was a young pro and in and around the first team, when school holidays, I would be training with the first team at 13, 14 years of age. Glenwood, I was the captain then, and stuff like that. So even though Joe and Paul and Gascoigne and Ian Bogey, that group, Paul Stevenson, great FA Youth Cup winning squad, they broke into the first team squad then. They were a bit older than me. I got to know them really well because I was then training with the first team when I was off school. So I'm playing one weekend for Benfield under 13s, and then the next weekend I'm training on a Friday afternoon with Newcastle's first team as they're prepping for a game against Aston Villa. So it's a bit weird.
And in between, he's scoring a hat-trick for England at Wembley, by the way, for England under 15s. Hat-trick for England, unbelievable, by the way.
Not many of us.
It's worth it.
Still got the ball. My mum's still got the ball. Yeah, that year, 10 games we had over the season, international programme, captain of England schoolboys, which was a great honour for the city, Newcastle City at the time. I think we're the only city still who've done it in 2 years running. We had two England schoolboy captains on the bounce, Sean Murray, and then me afterwards, and we're still the first city to ever have had that, which is it was great for us. I'm still astounded myself that Sean didn't go on to have. He's had a great career in football, didn't get us wrong. He went to Portsmouth in the Championship, but when he was a kid, he looked like he was going to be an absolute superstar. So sometimes it shows you if you make the wrong decision early in your career can backfire. Sean decided about not staying at home and moving to Tottenham, and that backfired a little bit, because when we were kids, whenever we found out we were playing on a pitch close to Sean Murray, we wanted our game to finish quick so we could go and watch him play. He was that good. So and then obviously when he came a bit older, it didn't pan out the way it was. But the England schoolboy stuff, 10 games, 2 at Wembley, 1 against Brazil, where I scored. We beat them 2-0. The late great Sir Bobby Robson was England manager then. He was in the Royal Box that day. We then had a double header against them. So we played them on the Saturday at Wembley in front of 82,000. Travelled straight up from London, both on coaches, separate coaches, but stayed at the George Washington Hotel, because we played at Roker Park on the Monday. And it snowed. As we got to the northeast, it was snowing. And these Brazilian lads were diving around the car park, at the George Washington Hotel. They'd never seen fucking snow before. Or not proper snow, they'd seen the Colombian stuff.
I comes later with Tino.
So this was mad, and then obviously we played them at Roker Park on the Monday, and we beat them 3-0 this night as well, and I scored again there. So, and then the last game of the season, for you, some years ago, old enough to remember, the last big England schoolboy game was always televised by ITV at the time. This was the thing that was done on a yearly basis, and there was some great players that previously played and starred in those games. And we played Italy, and we beat them 4-0 front 82,000 again, and I was lucky enough to score a hat-trick, and the great Sir Bobby was there. So he came to the house. There was a place called Lilleshall, which was like a national school of excellence, where they wanted all the best boys in the country to go, and they used to school them there, and they would get 3 or 4 different training sessions per day, and that was to give these elite footballers the best chance of developing. And because I was such a home bird, I didn't want to go. I refused to go, and Bobby came to see us as the England manager to try and entice us to go, but decided it wasn't for me, so I stayed at home with my mum and dad, where she could look after us with me. Then Bernard Matthews, turkey beans and beans. That was my favourite tea. If we got the curry from Iceland, I knew my dad had got a bonus.
This is the time when I have to share my England career with you. When I played for England under 20s, I'm still the only player in the history of the English game to get 2 caps in the same day. Me first and me fucking last. Anyway, Nash, Ozzy's left the club. You just mentioned before, not only did he change Newcastle, he's changed the northeast of England, because Sunderland got a ground, Middlesbrough got a ground, they all got teams even. And Newcastle United still playing at St James's Park as a player. Kevin King, to be involved at the club at that time as an apprentice professional, when Kevin Keegan arrived, it was like Elvis coming to town. And, we play in the youth team at 11 o'clock and be down here for 1 o'clock to be on duty at the first team, and to see the crowd coming from Gallagher all the way past Stow Street, and this is to get in one turnstile, and you were there. And the capacity of 38,000 at that time. QPR, never forget it. His first goal, 76 minutes, Gallagher end, and the crowd sucked it in the net. What a player! What a man!
It's one of those occasions where you'll always remember where you were. If you weren't lucky enough to be in the stadium, which I was, thankfully, it was televised. And what was quite unique about it being televised, if you remember, match of the day then, because it wasn't all alive football there is now, match of the day only usually showed extended highlights of the top level matches. and we were the league below, and we were the main game and match of the day, and that was the pull Kevin had. He was the main player in Britain. He was the poster boy. He was the top player. I went down a few weeks ago to see him over something else. He lives down in Manchester, Hale Way, and as usual, come on. When I was, right, leave your car. Me and Gene are out tonight. We'll take you out. We'll have a meal. You can stay with us. No, Gaffer, seriously, I've got things to do. So we went and had a look. I was looking around. He's doing a few things for us, and he took us into his like trophy room, and he's got the 2 Ballon d'Ors there that he won. So that tells you, an English stroke British player to win 2 Ballon d'Ors is the only one to have done it. But he said, and he jokingly, and this was typical of him, he says, I know Messi's got about 9 of them, but he said he's got none of them. And he had these 2 trophies from the Saturday morning swap shop, remember that show? And he said, fucking Messi hasn't got any of them, no? And he had 2 of them, and I thought, absolutely class, you're still on top form. So yeah, it was brilliant to see. But like you say, the impact he had, like I talk about that game in 1980, we had 15, 16,000, but you remember the size of the ground at the time was big, but because there was only 16,000, it looked quite empty. So when I got in the Gallagher end, you're basically choosing, do you want to be in the scoreboard, do you want to be in the corner, whatever, where do you want to stand, where do you want to sit. It was, then all of a sudden in 2 years it was like, if you're not getting your tickets now, you're not getting in, and then that's full. Sold out signs up there. The city centre, people who kind of get there are coming into the city centre because they want to be in and around it. Obviously Scottish Newcastle, which played a massive part of them coming here, they had the building there, and that was it. So it was just like the city was just on a different level, and to then have to then be a part of that in a different way in the 90s was, it just gives you an insight to what he was about. People always say to me like, Lee, you're good because you never turned down a picture, an autograph, to say hello, someone stops you. And I just said, well, basically I had the best mentor, I had the best trainer, because ultimately the most high profile person in the football club when I was a player was Kevin Keegan. And Kevin never turned down an autograph, never turned down a picture, never turned down, even when you do the gigs with him now when he comes up, when you do the meet and greet beforehand, Steve and Joe will tell you this, they last for hours, so we've got to get there earlier before the gig, because when someone comes to get a picture, it's not just put the arm around them and get a picture. Kevin wants to talk to them, he wants to know about them, when did they go to the match, who their favourite player was, etc. And he's like that with everyone. It's not false. This is him being normal. So when your manager is the highest profile person in the club and he's got the time to do that, it means you as a group of players, which we did then, we watched the manager do that. It became second nature for us to do that. So when people say, oh, it's good, it doesn't, we don't see it as good, we see it as normal, because we had a manager who was the perfect example to us. And it's just respect to the people who support us, who think. Kevin's motivational speeches were always about the supporters. So it was, whenever we went out to a match, it was about doing it for yous, what yous had sacrificed to come in to watch us. Understood a lot of yous weren't always financially in a fantastic position, but you made sure that you had enough money to come and support us and through all over the country. And Kevin made sure that we knew that. Even times at half time when he came in and had a go at us, which wasn't very often, it was always about you. We were letting yous down. It wasn't we were letting him down as the manager or the staff or ourselves, it was we're letting you down. I mean, a great story from the promotion season. Obviously won that night at Grimsby, and if you remember on the way home, with Kevin being Kevin, every time we seen in a pub or a restaurant on the way back from Grimsby. We seen, like, because it'd be that busy, Newcastle fans with Newcastle shirts, he made the bus driver stop and we got off. And the fans were buying a drink after drink. This was a Tuesday night, by the way. So we get back there, where we were meant to pick our cars up, and he'd organised taxis because we obviously couldn't get in a car. But we had a rearranged game on the Thursday night against Oxford. So on the Thursday night, we're still all, well, I think I speak for the lads, we're still all pissed. We've been on the drink since like 11 o'clock Tuesday night till we pulled in at St James's at 6 o'clock in the morning. By the time we'd stopped at every hotel and bar, now the Newcastle fans were in on the way back from Grimsby and they were filling with full of bevy. So we gets back, he gives with that Wednesday off, and then we report for the game on the Thursday. And in the warm-up, I remember saying to Coley, I'm seeing fucking 4 footballs here. And I know my eyes are bad now, but I'm nearly 53, I was only 21, I was 20 then. And first half we were woeful against Oxford. They went 1-up. By the way, we'd already won the league. It was only the Leicester game after this Oxford one. And I remember him coming in and said, that's a disgrace. Absolute disgrace. You're letting all these people down. When he pointed to above the dressing room, meaning you, the fans and the stadium. He says, in fact, it's that shit, I'm going home. And he got in his car and fucked off. Me and Corey thankfully scored second half and won 2-1. But Terry Mack in the press had to say that Jean, his wife, had been poorly, but he left, but he hadn't. He just says, it's that shit, I can't watch it anymore, I'm going home. Got in his car and drove back to Wynyard. So then obviously the famous game and the last one when we Leicester City, a playoff team, and we just absolutely obliterated them 7-1, 6-0 at half time. Sir John famously on Tyne Tees, it was the live game on Tyne Tees. He got a few champagnes obviously, and he'd done it with who was the reporter, not Roger Thames, Duncan Wood. And he said, we're coming after you, Man United in the Premier League, we're going to take this club into Europe. And they must have thought, look at this, another one up this. But what he was right. We went after the following, when we got the Premier League, went for the jugular, and we went for them, we weren't frightened of anybody. What a difficult start, that probably was the blessing in disguise, because it just calmed us down a little bit. We probably got ourselves a little bit excited with the promotion season. So those first 2 results at Tottenham at home and then Coventry away, probably just thought, it was basically a little smack on the backside for us to wake us up, and then we went from there and we never looked back, and we did get into Europe. We would have been in Europe more at the time, but there was obviously the restrictions on the British clubs because of the Heysel situation, and it wasn't like it was now. If you wanted to compete in the Champions League, you had to actually be the champions. You didn't have to finish from 19th, but have a good goal expectancy. You got in the fucking Champions League, not like it is now. So
you just mentioned Terry Mack before. Nash, what did Terry Mack do to the club?
Terry was inspirational, and why I say inspirational was never talked about his career, which was ridiculous. And because obviously I got close to him after the playing side with the management. He was my assistant and we were really close. And jumping the gun a little bit, a conversation I had with him one day when I was in management and he was an assistant at Huddersfield and up in his house up here in Newcastle. I was sitting with him one day and I was looking around this room and I was like, said to him, where's all the trophies? He says, Carol, where's my trophies? He's to his wife and she comes and brings a couple of shoe boxes and they're all in there. So I started looking through them and I'm like, 6, basically Premier Leagues, the first division, but the Premier League 6. And he went, no, I think there's 7. Carol, were one of these leagues missing? I'm like, well, he's won that many leagues, he doesn't know how many he's won. And then he's got 3 of the big ones, as he says, the European Cups, 2 League Cups, 4 Charity Shields, 1 FA Cup, and 2 Club World Cups. And I'm like, But Terry, even when he was with Kevin as the assistant, but certainly when he was my assistant, because I used to say, do you not understand? Because that era, the young lads that we were managing probably didn't know the full extent of what Terry had achieved. But Terry was so like humble, never wanted to say, and he was like, nah, they don't need to know about me. But what Terry was brilliant at, and he was brilliant for me, no coincidence when Terry had decided to come back to the North East because we're down in Birmingham, and he was family reasons he had to come back. No coincidence, him and Steve Black, when they left, things didn't work out as positively for me in my managerial career because I'd lost two big components. And what Terry was a great guy at going around the dressing room, making sure how were they doing, were they all right. Sometimes when you're playing in it, so when Terry was my assistant, when I was a player, you don't understand what he's doing. You're thinking, well, he doesn't do any coaching, but what he was like the buffer for Kevin. And when I ended up having him as my assistant, I realised then, so Terry would go into the dressing room and the players would, you've been there, sometimes they don't want to tell the manager if they've got issues, but they might tell the assistant, the go-between, and Terry would come back to me, Gabba, listen, such and such, this has happened, he's asking, yeah, let's sort it, no problem, Terry, you go and do it, I don't need to deal with that. And that's what he was like for Kevin, but he was also, where Kevin was unbelievably inspiring, but he could be ridiculously ruthless as well, so he could just smash you down. There's like loads of examples where he's just absolutely battered players and just smashed it, and Terry would be then the man to go basically with a brush and shovel to pick you up and, right, come on, you can go again, prove them wrong, and that type of stuff. Like there's examples where, and the lads won't think I'm speaking out of turn because I've told those stories in front of them. We played Arsenal away one day at Highbury, and he came in at half time and he said to Warren Paul, he says, Warren, he says, you're an average player on a good team. He says, win the ball and give it to fucking people who can play. And he says, no, in fact, come off. And then we played Chelsea away one day, and Steve Watson made an error on the ball and he went and scored. He came in at half time and he said, I blame all yous. And we're thinking, fucking hell, what's he on about now? What was his mistake? He says, I fucking blame all yous. You know when he's got time, he's a fucking liability. He says, when it's tight and he dribbles out of 10 players, that's when he's fine. He says, so you should have realised he had time, you should have been covering him. And stuff like that. And I remember another one we walked on, unfortunately, a couple of walked on, we played Tranmere, and Pat Nevin, good player, played a lot of years at Tranmere, and before the game, Kevin very rarely gives tactics up, but he said to Watto this day, he said, Watto, show Nevin on the inside, don't let him go on the outside because he crosses a quality ball. But what Watto had done, Watto showed him that much on the inside, Nevin could come on the inside but still had time to go back on the outside and cross. So came in off time, Watto, are you fucking winding me up, I'll tell you, but you're letting them do both, come off. So Watto was in the showers there in the home team dressing room. Derek Wright comes up to the KK and says, Gaffer, such and such struggling. And I remember the conversation because I was close to him, and Kevin said, Terry, what am I fucking going to do? Terry says, you'll have to get Watto out of the shower. I hadn't made the sub yet, so I hadn't told the rest, so Kevin goes down to the shower. Watto, get your kit back on. Show Nevin on the outside this time. He went out in the second half drenched, he'd been in the shower, everyone's thinking, how's he wet? It's not even raining. So, but, and Terry was great though, he was great. He would, what I experienced as my assistant, you know, the big times where you're ready to blow and he's like, Lee, take a step back, we'll deal with it like this. And it was like, yeah, you're right, Terry. And then other stuff where it was, oh, Gaffer, such and such has told us he's got a problem with his mum or his grandma or whatever. Terry goes to tell him he can have as much time off as he wants. Sometimes the players don't feel comfortable to come to the manager. And I don't think that's out of a fear. I think it's just because they're thinking, oh, will he allow us to do it or not? So sometimes they feel, and because Terry had that personality where everyone loved him, they would go to him. I mean, it's a great story, I know. I don't know if he's already, Terry's got a lisp, bunny, so at the start of the season, Terry would be doing stuff like passport details if they've changed, change of address. So we're going up to Berwick to play in a pre-season friendly. And Terry says, lads, I need any changes of address, come down, I need all your documents, blah, blah, blah. So I remember I was one sitting down the front by Terry, even though I was a player. So Steve Howie comes down and he says, so Terry's right, he says, Steve, give us your address, son. He says, 66 Ski View, Silksworth, Sunderland. So Terry's going, click, Ski View, I no fucking take the pic. He goes, no, Terry, that's my real address. He goes, what a bastard. And then when I got later on, when I came back the second time, and I was a player, but I was in the coaching role as well, I was a player coach. So I used to go into the coaching room in the afternoon after I'd trained as a player. In the afternoon I'd go into the coaches' rooms and look at the analysis and what we're doing for the prep for the team. We had a goalkeeping coach called Roy Tunks, I don't know if you remember, under Graham Souness. And Tunksy was dry humour, great guy. So we went in, after we had lunch, me and Terry walked in the coach's room, and Terry Mack went to Tunksy, I want a word with you, Tunksy. And we never thought anything more of it. Tunksy walked out, now more, we're looking at some footage and all that. Then about half an hour later, Tunksy comes in with a waterproof jacket on, but with a hood fastened up. You can only see his eyes. He says to Terry Mack, what do you want to say? Because he brought the thing with his lisp, thinking he'd been spitting. Great crack.
Nash, I want to talk about the entertainers and obviously the characters that were there. There's some foreign imports come to the club. How did you get on with the foreigners come to the club?
Absolutely brilliant, and it's all testimony to the team spirit that Kevin had fostered, that the type of lads he brought in. When the foreign lads turned up, they automatically felt at home. It was brilliant. They bought into the English way of life, they bought into the Geordie way of life. We know the Geordie way of life's a little bit different to the rest of the English way of life, we know that. But the likes of Faustino, David, Philippe, Albert, absolutely brilliant, Mark Hottager, super, stories with all of them. Philippe. What used to happen, first Saturday of pre-season, we would go into Jesmond, have a bit of food, and for a few beers, the whole squad. That was the unwritten rule. Whoever was captain, Barry Venison, Peter Beardsley, that's what we had to do. So the first Saturday, and that Saturday we were just sitting down to eat. So it was early part of the day, and we found out that Philip was signing, and an hour later I turned up, and the first time we'd all met him was in a boozer in Jesmond, and we realised that he was definitely going to be one of us, because within a couple of hours he'd had about 12 pints of Stella, and it hadn't affected him whatsoever, as I'll come on to tell you a bit later in the story. Ginola, brilliant, world-class footballer. For the first 6 months, the best player I've ever played with. For the first 6 months, unplayable. But over a period of time, I'll always say Peter's the best I've ever played with, Peter Beardsley, and in my opinion, the best player to wear a black and white shirt. But Ginola, we played, if you remember, a team called Russian and Diamonds. They're now bankrupt, but they were run by a guy who owned Dr. Martens, and he had these big plans for them to get them from non-league into the Football League. So we went down and opened our stadium pre-season, and as a gift we all got a pair of Dr. Martens. And on the way back, David was staying in the Gosforth Park, and at that time the Gosforth Park was the place to be, the hotel was of the area. And he's like, lads, I fancy a few beers tomorrow, anyone up for it? And most of the married lads, nah, but me and Waddle, we'll take you out, David, no problem. We lived in Gosforth at the time, just opposite the 3 Mile Inn, so we took them into the 3 Mile Inn. We went and got them from the Gossie Park. We took them down from about 1 o'clock, and it got to about 4. He says, right lads, thanks for that. I'm off back to the hotel. I'm going to have a steam, jacuzzi, sauna, swim. And he says, no. It doesn't work like that, David. Once you're out, you're out. So it brings him down here. Legends at the top of Grey Street. He's in there. Me and what do I do in the bang at the top of the bottles and drink him, and he must have been thinking, for fuck's sake, these two are lunatics. Next day, it's pre-season. Next day we've got a ridiculously tough running session, and we're at the front as if nothing's happened, as if we've been in bed since like 8 o'clock the previous night. We're bombing on this run. We look back, David's bent over, vomiting. I remember him doing an article in the Daily Mail saying, I knew English football was going to be different when I seen these two young lads drink what they drink, but then just run as if they'd been prepping for a marathon for a month. And so that was that. And then obviously the Colombian crazy horse, who was like just absolutely brilliant. I mean, he lived in Wilson. We used to go and knock him up on a Sunday morning. He'd come downstairs, or his mum, it's not his mum, his father or his housekeeper would come and let us in. We'd go up to his bedroom, he'd still be asleep. Batter him to wake him up, he'd be in his Tweety Pie Disney pajamas. He had a floor-to-ceiling fridge in his ensuite full of beers. So we're out on a Sunday, and he bought into it. The example I'll give you, we should have realised what we had. So we signed him, I think it was on a Friday late on. We were playing Middlesbrough away in a Tyne derby, and we stayed overnight down in Middlesbrough. We came down for a pre-match meal at 12:15, which is your last bit of food before you go and play. Tino's there having a bit of pasta, and he's got a half a carafe of red wine. So he's had about 2.5 glasses of red wine. So we're thinking, he mustn't be available, he's going to play next week. The gaffer names the team, Tino's on the bench. We're like, fuck me, he's just done half a bottle of red. So the game's tight, he comes on, and he's out of this world. The tricks, the skills are scary. He makes the winner. Was it for Watto? Watto scored the winner, we win 2-1. So unbelievable assist, nutmegs and then a little ding cross, Watto heads it in. I think, fuck me, he's on fire and he's half pissed. What's he going to be like when he's sober? We never got the chance to see him sober. So. But one a great story, he'd been on international duty, and the two main meeting points for us then was the physio's room and the canteen up at the Newcastle, where we used to just meet up and share the crack from the day before, from being out, you know, what the banter was and all that. And Tino was lying on the medical table, Derek Wright's medical table, and in his calf he's got like a big gash. So I says to him, hey Tino, bad tackle, international duty? He says, no, Nashki, bullet wound. I says, bullet wound? He says, yes, where I live, very dangerous. I says, Tino, you need to calm yourself down. I says, you're going to get kicked off the national team if you keep being like this. He says, never, Nashki. Me and Pablo Escobar picked the national team.
Nash, got to say,
one more story about the foreign lad. Philip Albert comes in one day. He goes, Nashki, how do I get to Edensburg? I says, I don't know where that is, pal. He says, Edensburg. I says, I've never heard of it. He says, in Scotland. I went, oh, you mean Edinburgh? He went, yes, you thick Geordie, C-U-N-T.
You're so many points clear in arguably the best team that ever had the chance to win the top flight in English football. One, how gutted were you? And two, what's your take on why?
Well, I'm very gutted. I've still got the dust building up on the mantelpiece where the Premier League medal should be. And to not win one of the biggest trophies in English football, and then your son's only been in the game 6 months and he wins the Carabao Cup and he invites you in and puts a medal on your head and says you went 22 years and won fuck all after 6 months and won this. I thought you said the game's hard. No, on a serious note, yeah, really tough. When it gets brought up on TV, when the games, I don't watch it. It's really tough. We're a sensational team, unbelievable team. There's many stories. If you ask every single player from that squad, they'll have a different reason. Did we have enough experience? Peter had won the league. Was Barry Venison still around then? Had Barry won it? Listen, anyway, we only had 2 or 3 players. Man United didn't. But the bottom line was, if Kevin hadn't replaced us with David Batty, we would have won it. Yeah. We were 12 points clear in my last game. My last game at Man City that we drew 3-3, we were 11 points clear then, and then I never started another game.
So then we went on from that, and your mate Andy Cole has been sensational, scoring goals, Nash. Absolutely sensational. You spoke last week at the Entertainers gig, and you gave him a hell of a tribute. Andy Cole leaving and getting replaced by Shearer. Your take on it?
Well, no, Les came first, isn't he? And what the story was there, Joe, I'm not sure a lot of people know, is about 6 months earlier, right? Because we were all young lads and around there, and there wasn't a lot to do once you'd finished training down at Newcastle. So we used to come around St James's and just hang about the ground. And so we were in the Milburn stand reception one afternoon, me, Curly. Kevin comes out of his office, which was there, and he says, "Hey, what you two up to? You go, no good, no, Gaffer, we're just sitting here." And he says, "You got coats with you?" Yeah. "Come on, you come with me and tell me." So puts her in the car, goes forward over at Anfield. So we're watching Liverpool versus QPR, and he turns to me and Cole and he says, could you play with him? Les Ferdinand playing for QPR. And we said, fucking hell, I like him. Brilliant in the air, great touch, powerhouse, quality player, could score. And we said, oh, a bit of that. And Corey's like, yeah, that would be a good combination. Peter in behind, and Peter loading the gun and then firing the bullets. So it was like, yeah, absolutely. I mean, Corey never got the fucking chance to play with him, I did. So. But yeah, that was the story. And then when Corey left, it was like, everyone knows. I don't just say it because of my close relationship with Corey. The stats will tell you, and you were a number 9. You know what makes you tick. You know what you've got a different mentality, how you work and how you live and how you do things. You know, being a number 9, it means completely different to the rest of the team. And you know, when you have a ratio, I mean, is it something like 64 goals in 81 games or something like that, is it? So when you're talking about that ratio, it puts him at the top of the tree. And I think what soured it a little bit, and he understands that because I still speak to him, is the stuff when he went to Man U and there was a couple of derogatory songs, etc. But he loved it at Newcastle. He was adored. He found it difficult. He found the adulation and all that, and being the number 9, he didn't actually realise. And one thing Coley sometimes gets mistakenly mentioned as arrogant. He actually is the opposite. He's very insecure, he's very nervous. So when all this adulation, when he was going in the supermarkets and the shops that we all know about as local lads, that comes as the norm. He found that very daunting, didn't really understand about it. So when he first come, and he was like, wow, and he'd experienced I think about a month living in a hotel, but and he set off on fire, and he'd experienced what was happening to him around the city. He thought, well, I maybe need to go and live somewhere a little bit quieter. So I get a call off him one Saturday afternoon. I think we must have been playing on the Sunday or the Monday live on Sky, because we didn't play on the Saturday. And he says, used to call us Slim then. I mean, God knows what he fucking calls us now. I mean, and he said, Slim, fancy come to help us move in the house? I says, I know about it. I says, where do you live? Where are you moving to? He said, Crook. I says, where the fuck's that? He says, well, you're from the northeast. I says, exactly, and I don't know where the fuck that is. And he said, I said, well, and there wasn't really much sat nav, and I'm fucking tired. So I ended up getting there, and I helped him move in. I says, you're hungry? And he says, aye. I says, well, there's a boozer just down the road there. I says, we'll go in, we'll get a pub meal or whatever. I walks in first, and it's got there's a group of blokes, must be the regulars. That afternoon, got the, don't know if it's Sky or whatever, the football results are coming in. Coley comes in behind us, no word of a lie, every bloke, say 15 blokes who had a pint, went like that, as I seen Coley stop, like they'd seen a fucking alien. Just because obviously Black Crook hadn't, no seriously, no, it's true, it was the thing.
I'm from there.
Yeah, so you would know.
Yeah.
So I get in the car.
You're not wearing fucking shorts in January.
So I get in the car, driving back. I rings the gaffer. Gaffer, it's Nash. Hi, are you alright, Lee? What's up? Everything alright? I says, yeah, fine, gaffer. I says, I've just been helping Coley moving his new house. He says, good lad. I says, but he's moved to Crook. He says, Crook, where's that? I says, well, I don't know, gaffer, somewhere in Durham. I says, but it's fucking stupid. I says, like, they think there's a fucking Martian just lying. He says, well, what do you mean? I tell him about the story, and I says, fucking God, I says, like, in the winter, I says, you'll not get out of there, man. I says, it'll be fucking 10 foot of snow. Leave it with us. A couple of days later, Freddie, the late Freddie Shepherd, had a couple of apartments looking onto Jesmond Cricket Club, and he put them in there, so. And it was just stuff like that. It was just, then we moved obviously close to each other in Gosforth, but great lad, still keep in touch with him. He came up a couple of years ago for my 50th, brilliant to see him. Went to Man United and won every trophy possible, smashed some great records, and is a phenomenal strike. When you think his goals, and you will understand this more than anyone being a number 9, when you look at his goals, if anyone looks at his stats when you go home, not one penalty. Not one penalty in them stats. So that tells you crazy ratio. But he loves it. When I speak to him and I say, come back to Newcastle, there's been a couple of times where Steve and other lads have got him back with certain things. And he's been a bit nervous about the reaction. I was like, they love you. They love the number 9s. Yeah, you made some mistakes, etc. in terms of the Man U stuff and the songs or whatever. Look what I'd done when I went to the dark side for 2 years.
Don't worry, we're fucking coming to that.
Everyone makes a mistake. At least 9 paid for a couple of Ferraris. But yeah, listen, that's that, and he does. I just sometimes think that he does go under the radar a little bit because of the scenario. We should never forget what he done, and obviously the replacements that come in were superb.
And you've seen that article that he did on Sky, which is absolutely superb, seeing Andy Cole's story from himself in his own words, and it's absolutely brilliant. He does talk a lot about Man United, but the stuff he says about Newcastle United is absolutely fucking top class. I'm not joking, he was a legend.
When he got put in the Hall of Fame, he asked me to go as his guest in Newcastle, and that was a proud evening for him, because he was, at the time as well, which he still is, it isn't 100% recovery, having the issues with his kidney. He did have the transplant from his nephew, which did basically save his life, but it hasn't brought him back into 100% recovery. There's still issues going on, and I sat with him and his nephew, who we brought up at the time, and he said to us that him being inducted into the Newcastle United Hall of Fame meant as much as winning the Champions League and the Premier League with Man United. This was a very important award for him, and he never thought that he was held in that high esteem, even though I used to have to keep telling him. I mean, he's a fucking moaning bastard, didn't get it wrong. Fucking 90 you know, I think you know, he was a worthy wearer of the famous number 9 jersey of this football club, that's for sure.
Definitely, yeah. Definitely in the top 5 ever, number 9s for Newcastle. So, talking about another number 9, Nash, Andy's left for Man United, and we get Alan Shearer. What's going on in the dressing room? We know ourselves as players, when new lads coming in to this group, and all of a sudden, the rumour, we've signed. What did Keegan say on the steps? He said to the fans something like, "Don't worry,
just trust this, just my judgment, yeah, basically." And it was we flew out to Bangkok for the Far East tour. Kevin abruptly, just as the plane was trying to pull away, the British Airways plane was trying to pull, you know, when the bit where you walk onto the plane, and he abruptly stopped and says, "Can I quickly get off?" And they were like, "For fuck's sake," and we were like, "What the fuck's a gaffer doing now?" Like, and he was basically going to get to Manchester again and have a second round of talks with Allon. So he didn't come on the flight to Bangkok, came a couple of days later, and then it broke that we'd signed and we broke the world record. And obviously we just had the disappointment of losing the 12-point lead in to win the Premier League, and Kevin sat me down before one of the training sessions and said, "Lads, listen, if you didn't realise you're playing for a big club, you will now. We've just smashed the world transfer record to bring the best number 9 in world football back home." And we were like, wow, this is going to take it to a new level. And then we had this tour and stuff like that. And it was just like, the thing for me was a little bit different because I'd known Allon since we were like 8 or 9. Allon had been at Wallsend Boys Club, a couple of years older than me. But how they used to structure the training at Wallsend was, we had a room upstairs where you'd do your weight training for half an hour, and then you'd go down onto the 5-a-side pitch and do your half an hour football. So when I was in the younger age group, Allon would be coming out of the weights room and we'd be going in. So we knew each other really from then. And so when he came in, it was like, well, this could be the final piece. When you think of the football now, and people talk about these great forward 3 players, we were going to have Shearer and Ferdinand as out and out strikers, but could do both, come short, spinning behind, good in the air, brilliant on crosses, hold them, could basically do everything as a striker. But then we had the first ever player who invented the number 10 role and the best in the business, in Peter Beardsley, and you're thinking, wow. But then when you realise that, you're thinking, how the fuck am I going to get the team? And then it's like, whoa, shit. Reality's hitting me. I was like sitting as a fan thinking, fuck me, this is going to be brilliant. Shit, how am I getting in? Where am I going to play? And it was like, whoa. And then you're thinking this way, and it was just like, wow. But unfortunately, it wasn't allowed to come to fruition because within 6 months Kevin had left and the dynamics of the group had changed. A new manager comes in, he's got his own ideas, and that, nothing against Kenny. Kenny had won the league with Liverpool and Blackburn, so his history was there. But, you know, he plays in a different way to Kevin. And, you know, there was a lot of us left after that. Was myself, David, Philippe Albert, Les, you know, unfortunately got sold, and Les being, you know, a man of his word, once they had decided to let him go, and then Allon got the injury, there was no way. I know for a fact, and I'm saying they were trying to make Leslie consider he wasn't going to stay once they decided to sell him. It wasn't going to happen. So yeah, that team got broken up, and even though we finished second, my last season, we finished second under Kenny, it wasn't similar to the year before where we'd been right in the title race. I think we were about 4th going into the last game, and results went our way and we won We got second again. So yeah, it was a little bit different, and it was unfortunate because you're thinking, typical of Kevin is, we've just done something where we've lost something. I ain't going to rectify it defensively. I'm just going to go and get the best fucking striker in the world so we can score more goals than the opposition. And he said to us, he said, thank you. Thank you very much. If we didn't believe that we were playing for a big club, we should now, because we've just smashed the record of being the best striker in the business back home. And it was right. It was great. It was like he hadn't been away. It was brilliant. Brought straight back into it. Loved the fact that he was back home. All those lads that I knew him beforehand, it was just like I said last Friday, when you get back in touch with people, it's amazing. And yeah, it was tough because you think that you brought back this unbelievable striker who went on to be the number 9 of the football club, and we never got any trophies with it. And it's a strange one, but it's I think it hurts him. It hurts him certainly. But he was brilliant. He was still the same lad that I'd known years ago. Practical jokes, all the craziness. Like the Charity Shield, one of his first games. Guy who you will know, great lad, Derek Wright, the physio. We obviously got our suits for the Charity Shield. It was a day where it was boiling, but it rained. And it was one of them horrible days, so it was raining, but it was still hot. We had my suits, but what we'd done the night before, we all had my suits, we got our shirts, our ties, the full money, so we looked the same. We got Derek's room key, we got in his room, and his shirt was still in the packet. So we got his shirt out the packet, we cut the arms off, and folded it back up and put it in the packet. But it still had the free bits like Fred Flintstone and all that. So Derek's helping like he does, carrying the skips with the kit man and his medical stuff to the bus the next day to go to the ground to Wembley. He's fucking sweating for fun. And we're like, Derek, you're fucking sweating, what's the matter with you, lad? Take your jacket off. And he's like, oh yeah, good one, lads. So when he did take it off, he's got the fucking frayed shirt on, it's good there. And we were just in hysterics. And that was the type of stuff that went on. It was absolutely brilliant. We had a great laugh. All that type of stuff went on. We used to be the gang where we'd done it with Philip Albert once in the hotels, you know, because you're bored, you go to the hotels on a Friday night, there's a big group of guys and you're like, what the fuck am I doing, you know? When you're at home, you've got to be, when you're in a home game, you're sitting there with the family, you're watching the telly, so you're being sensible. Big group of lads are just fucking imbeciles, aren't you? So we used to take a fucking, David Batty used to bring like a fucking proper toolkit. And he used to pop the fucking eyepieces out the door and then knock on the door and someone would look like, Philip, fucking look, this day we fired a fire extinguisher. And then he missed the fucking game with an eye injury. I mean, we were shitting ourselves. We fired, me, Shearer and Batty fired this fire extinguisher through the eyepiece. And it fucking popped his fucking eye back. And he was proper struggling wanting to get the physio in, and Derek's going, I have to tell the gaffer he's not going to be fit for tomorrow. And I'm going, fuck's sake, Derek, can't be doing that, man. I'm like, Philippe, just fucking put a patch over your eyes. Like, well, you are the idiots who fired the fucking fire extinguisher, not me. I just looked through the eyepiece. So we used to do Philippe all the time. So what he used to do when we used to end up cutting on, knocked on the door, he wouldn't look through it anymore. So what we've done, see these roofs like that, the tiles, this is what it used to be like. We fucking pushed the tiles up, we got along and we fucking dived through the tiles in his room and started firing. Must have been thousands of quid's worth of fucking damage to the hotel. I mean, God knows, certainly Shearer wouldn't have footed the bill, he wouldn't even fucking buy you a pint. Don't go out with him and Rob Lee, fucking hell, you are in trouble.
You're not wrong. He didn't do that bad actually, he was only 244 goals more than me in the fucking number 9 shirt. And that's, it
was great once, because when I came back the second time, in Allon being Allon, we were sort of do what, well I'd already started on my coaching badges and Allon wanted to do some as well, so I was progressing onto my A licence and my pro licence, and Tommy Craig, the reserve team manager, brilliant coach educator for the Scottish FA. So in the afternoon we'd go back with Tommy and we'd do some sessions with the youth team and the under-21s to help us in getting our certificates to become coaches. And so we used to have to, if you remember where the training ground was in the academy, you used to cross over a dirt track to get to the academy. So we were walking past one day and there was loads of kids there, and these kids were like pestering obviously Allon more than me, and were like, Allon, give us something to remember you of. And he says, I've fucking done that 260 odd times. And I went, after the 26.
So you mentioned before you had a little bit of problem with your brain and you went to the fucking dark side.
Aye.
The t-shirt was the incident, I believe.
I didn't do it, to be honest. I mean, people say I'm thick, but fucking hell, the bank balance went crazy for a couple of years after that. So, I mean, I ended up buying a beautiful big house in the countryside, and I called it Sir Bob Murray. Sir Bob Murray Drive. No, actually, I see him. You know, I see him now, and my partner now, her parents do really well, and they put a lot of money in the Newcastle United Foundation and the Sunderland Foundation to support a lot of things going on in North East Newcastle University for arthritis, etc., etc. And Sir Bob with the foundation, Bob Murray, he was at my mother-in-law's house, so she rang me, she said, oh, Sir Bob's your league, would you like to come and see him? Oh yeah, I'll come see him when he lived around the corner. So I went back in, and like all managers that I've played for, Joe, and I think you're the same, it's because of where the era would come from, and chairman, I still, even though I socialise with them, still call all my managers gaffer, and all my ex-chairman, chairman. So I went in, Mr. Chairman, how are you? And he was buzzing that I told him that. And we got on to the chat, so he said to his Bob Murray, he says, so Lee, got on and he said, remember, we have to pay that money for you. Peter Reid, remember coming saying, I want to take Lee Clark, Newcastle. And Bob Murray said, fucking hell, you're winding me up. He says, no, be brilliant for us. For fuck's sake, how much is it going to cost? 4 million quid. All right. He says, do you know how many, when we announced your signing, do you know how many season tickets were sold that day? And I went, oh, what, 10,000? He went, fucking 0. He went, fucking none. I went, oh, right. I says, did it change? He went, you know.
To be fair, you were player of the year, like 2 years running. So, how, I mean, you're Geordie through and through, you bleed black and white. Really comes in. Tell us what happened.
So, I'd said to Kenny, Kenny had come to us with Freddie Fletcher and said, we want you to sign a new deal. I said, listen, Cap, I've had enough of playing well, and then sometimes, you know, I went on this run, played Villa, drew 2-2, scored, beat Charlton in the FA Cup, me and Sheila scored 2-1 out here, went to Southampton, scored again. So I wasn't just playing well, I was scoring, I was on a run. Had the FA Cup on the Saturday against Forest, he left us out. I think it might have been Peter coming back from an injury. Hey, I ain't complaining, I'm not saying I'm better than Peter, I'm just telling you what I think of him. But the fact that I was getting moved up, so mine was made up, I need to move, because you know, Monday to Friday, you're working your bollocks off, you're trying very hard, but you want the adrenaline rush on the Saturday. So you got to play. So in that summer, they said, no, I want to go, what's going to be the fee? Spoke to a lot of clubs, spoke to Celtic, the late great Tommy Burns, Rangers, Dick Advocaat. And by the way, you've got to remember Celtic and Rangers at that time, not in the position they are now. They were powerhouses, they had money to spend, they were attracting big players. And you know, with the history they've got, the fan base, they were a different old firm club then in terms of the competitiveness. Frank Clark at Man City, Matt old gaffer, Jim Smith at Derby, they were Premier League at the time. Brian Little at Villa big club. And the last one to meet, out of courtesy, through my old pal Paul Bracewell, who was assistant manager to Reedy, Sunderland. So my agent organises to go down to meet him in Manchester, Peter Reid, in a wine bar. And anyone who knows us, I'm probably one of the worst drinkers of alcohol ever. The smallest amount of alcohol makes us pissed. I'm ridiculous. So he takes us in this wine bar, oysters and champagne. I've said to him as I walked in, by the way, I've only come out of courtesy, there's fucking no chance I'm signing up for something. 3 hours later, 5 bottles of pink fucking Laurent Perrier champagne, I've signed a 5-year contract. I was that pissed coming from the meeting, my agent in Sunderland had paid for a private jet to fly us from Newcastle to Manchester to meet Reedy and back from Manchester to Newcastle. So I was in a private jet just for me. I was that pissed coming home, they weren't going to let us on the plane. I had to tell them, the staff, no, the plane was just for me. There's no one else on it. I wasn't going to cause any problems. As long as they locked the pilot in the cockpit, there was no issue. And so on the Monday, that's on the Friday. On the Saturday, I'm golfing at Wynyard with my mates. I get a call from my ex-wife. She said, I've had someone from the FA, someone called Glenn Hoddle. I says, it's a lad's taking the piss. I says, tell him to fuck off. So he rings us back, she says, I passed the message on, but he was quite abrupt and says, no, you don't understand, we need to speak to Lee. I says, well, give me number, tell him to ring us. So I'm just about to take a tee shot, phone rings. Lee, Glenn Hoddle. Alright, Glenn, yeah. I don't think your wife believed who I was. I thought it was my fault, I thought it was one of the lads here. He says, we're going to do the Le Tournoi tournament 1997 before the World Cup in France 98. England, France, Italy and Brazil. I'm going to call you up. We're meeting Sunday night, fly out Monday morning. I says, well listen, I says, I've just agreed a deal to leave Newcastle and go to Sunderland. I says, in the press conference is Monday. He says, no problem. We'll sort you out, we'll fly you out later on that day. Right, great. So, on the golf course, rings me agent up. I says, for internationals, have you put anything in the contract? He says, I have. I says, why? I says, well, Glenn Hoddle's just been on the phone. He's going to name us in the squad on Monday morning for the tournament. He says, leave it with us, I'll go back to Bob Murray. So he renegotiated the international stuff, if I got called into the squad, first cap, etc. Bump the prices up, because they're thinking, well, if he gets in the England squad, you'll pay it no problem, because it means he's flying. And so the Monday morning, I takes my dad with us. Unfortunately, at the time, the press conference had to be at Roker Park, even though I never played there, because the Stadium of Light wasn't finished. It got finished a couple of weeks later, hadn't been passed, so I had to do the press conference at Roker Park. I turned up in this lovely pinstripe suit, but it was black and white. I walks in and really goes, I fucking take it. I goes, what's up, Gaffer? That you wearing black and white? I goes, it's a fucking lovely suit, I bought it in Marbella. He went, oh, for fuck's sake, we got me, chap. He turns the brace, he says, we've got fucking no chance, yeah, we're in. So he does the press conference, he goes back in his office, yellow ticker. Sunderland break that transfer record to sign Lee Clark, Newcastle United, blah blah blah. Sitting there, Reedy, Bob Murray, Paul Bracewell, me, my dad, me agent. 10 minutes later, breaking news, yellow ticker again. Shock inclusion in England squad. Sunderland's new signing, Lee Clark included. Bob Murray and Reedy looked straight at me and said, you little bastard. No wonder Stretford fucking put them extra clauses in on the Saturday night for the deal. So all that stuff, done it. 2 great years in playing terms. Both years cup finals. First year went to the cup final, great, got all my mates with shirts and that. Second year, into Baker Street, Oxford Street, Geordie lads got a boozer there, gets out the cab, t-shirt on, click. Not phones, not camera phones by the way, because they weren't around. It was the old disposable cameras, remember them? Thinks nothing more of it. My father-in-law at the time, great bloke, still get on well with him. He goes, fuck me, you could be in trouble. I says, you reckon? He says, oh aye. Nah. few weeks have passed. I'm on my way to the Northumberland plate race day. Me and Steve Watson in the car. Gets a phone call from the press. We've got a picture of you in the Sad Mac and Bastard t-shirt. what you got to say? Now puts the phone down, rings me agent. Paul Strepper. Now what we doing? I says, you now need to earn your money, pal. He says, why? I says, they fucking got the picture with that dodgy t-shirt. He says, what dodgy t-shirt? I says, the one I told you about the other week. He says, you never told me. I went, oh fuck, I must have forgotten. I says, well, they've got the picture, find out what you're going to do with it. So obviously, when they come out and all that, there was no way I could go back. Nice t-shirt. I ended up having to go, pre-season was still on. That open a new gate and make a new driveway at the fucking training ground because the Sunderland lynch mob were waiting for us at the gate. And I remember going in to see Bob Murray. Really was away on holiday, and the fixtures had come out. Sunderland just promoted. First game Chelsea away at Stamford Bridge, and Reedy's on the loudspeaker on the phone. Me, Bob Murray, the agent in the boardroom, and he says. Really said, I fucking told you not to wear colours, that was the only reason. I said, Gaffer, I never wore colours. I said, someone put a t-shirt on us, that was it. Yeah, right, I'm enjoying, I've got a bottle of wine waiting for me, I'm not talking this shit. Puts the phone down, just all I'm going to see you being that team at Stamford Bridge. Puts the phone down, Bob Murray goes, you know that can't happen, Lee, you fucking got to go. And I say, I need for that, I don't understand. Me and the agent had already had Fulham lined up. So we knew, and some agents like, Bob, what's the situation, what do you want to bet? Just get me money back. So it was the 4 million plus the $500,000 bonus for getting promoted. So get us 4.5 million back, and it done deal. So we knew Fulham were ready to pay that, even more of them if it needed. As we were walking out, I had 3 years left on the contract. As we were walking out the boardroom, I turned on, I says, Mr. Chairman, I says, you're going to pay us up that last 3-year Meath contract? He went, get out this fucking office, man. I thought I'd kick you right up the arse. And that was it. So, but I still see Reedy now, he comes, you know, even when he was Sunderland manager, you know, lots of times he'd come over to St James's Park, he still comes now. Mate of mine took him brought him for the Everton game at St James's. And he loves the banter when he gets, it's all light-hearted, of course there's a bit of frisk in it, but it was funny because on a Monday morning I'd go and sit with him, I'd get in early for training, and I'd go into the dining room and he'd be in early as well, and we'd sit there, me and him, he'd sit opposite us and I'm having a cup and he's having his cup and he'd go, right, so what your mate's been singing about is over the road. And I just said, now really, Gaffer, just you fucking got a monkey's heel, that's all. Now defensive, and he used to say, fucking love them black and white.
Nash, we're going to get the audience to come in a little while, but I've got to talk about your managerial career, because you did all your coaching badges. You earned your Spurs and whatever as we getting reserve team manager and stuff like that. But at Huddersfield Town, you broke a record which I don't think a lot of people understand, where you went over 44 games, I believe.
I still hold the record.
Go on, you say.
Just over Brian Clough. 43 games unbeaten in the football.
I was trying to get an extra fucking game. I thought you might have been on win bonus.
I know. Brian Clough had 42. I've now got 43. No one's ever beat that. So basically, when you think it's a 46 game season, I went 3 games without losing.
What was the thing that made you tick?
The day I got sacked at Huddersfield, I'd lost 1 game in 58. So I just knew then I was in the madhouse. When I took the job, when I first took my first managerial job, all these senior managers would ring us up and said, welcome to the madhouse. And I didn't think anything of it because I wanted to be a manager. I loved coaching and I loved developing players. But when I realised after 58 games and 1 defeat I got sacked, I knew what they meant. I got some great phone calls the day I got the sack. Mick McCarthy, for example, rang us and he said, Lee, I'm in London in a restaurant I'm hearing a rumour he'd been sacked. I goes, I have, big man. Yeah, Mick, I have. He goes, what was your last stats? I says, well, I've lost one out of my last 58. He went, fuck me, I haven't won one out of my last 58. So yeah, I mean, but you know what, in my terms of my managerial career, and this is how stats and data can change things. That was a phenomenal time, what I had at Huddersfield and the team I built and the money I made the club. I bought young players and we sold them for mega profits. But I'll always say the job I'd done at Birmingham was better, even though you go and look on these stupid pages, Wikipedia, whatever they are, the data will be less, my win percentage will be less at Birmingham than it was at Huddersfield. But the difference was at Birmingham, I was fighting financial situation where I had to cut costs. So, for example, I took the job on July the 1st. July the 14th, my owner, Carson Young from Hong Kong, got put under house arrest, so all his assets were frozen. So we had no money to spend. And I was told 2 weeks later I had to cut the wage bill from 26 million to 6 million in 3 transfer windows. And that's really difficult to be competitive. And a club like Birmingham, the fans want to try and think that they can get back to the Premier League. But when you're having to deal with that, you end up having to sell your best young players for less money than they're worth. I had Nikola Zigic on 75 grand a week, who wouldn't move, and rightly so. I used to have some great conversations with him. We used to laugh about it, because the board used to always say, we need to move Zigic, and I'm like, fucking hell, are you weighing me up? Why is he going to move off 75 grand a week? He's got 2.5 years left. It's not his fault he signed that contract. You give him it, there was no relegation clauses in it. And this one day I thought, because they kept mentioning about the Middle East and Russia at the time were the only countries that could afford that type of money for a player outside the Premier League. Even Premier League money at that time, 2013, 14, 75 grand a week was a lot of money. But he was in the Championship. And so I get him in, and we had a great relationship. And he was that big, he was 6'7", so he would sit down, but I would stand up, so we were on like level line. Because if I sat down, he was like fucking still up there. So, and he said, Kappa, listen, I promise you, I'm not interested in Russia, not interested in the Middle East, not interested in that. The only thing I may consider, he came from Real Sociedad, I think it was, I consider going back to Spain. So, got this out of the board. Then I get a call from an agent, Malaga at the time. Malaga now League 2 in Spain, but at that time under Arab owners, big club, south of Spain, played Champions League. So they contacted us. Ziggy had 1 year left on 75. They were prepared to give Ziggy 2 more years on 50 a week and go live in southern Spain. So I get him, got your answer, got you back to Spain. Alright, got you Malaga, 50 grand a week for 2 years, but here's the Brucey bonus, we're going to give you 2 million to leave. So Birmingham are going to give him 2 million in one hit to go on top. Fantastic. And he sits and he looks and he goes, I think I'll stay. I thought, fuck. And at the time, Brucey was living down in Birmingham, and I used to go for a drink with Brucey, but Brucey used to always say, what are you doing with the Village? He was manager of Hull. I kept saying, do you want to buy him? Like, no, I'm not interested. Well, why do you keep asking us? So eventually I got the truth out of him. I says, why do you keep fucking going on? What am I doing with Village? He says, well, he's fucking renting out my fucking apartment on 5 grand a month. If you get rid of him, I'm fucked. And I said to him, fucking hell, no wonder you wanted him to stay. I says, I kept thinking you were wanting to buy him. He says, well, why the fuck would I want him at all?
Just want to say, Nash, obviously you've had loads of clubs as regarding managerial appointments, Birmingham, Blackpool and Bury and what have you. Is your ambition still to get back into management?
Absolutely not. I've been dealing with, the last few days, there's been some stuff going on with Bobby with potential sales and this, that and the other, and stuff like that, and it's just reminders that I'm better off out the madhouse, honestly, Joe. It's like, there's only so many managers can be successful. And when I mean so many managers, I mean in very few. And an example I'll give, if the guy here who I absolutely love, Eddie Howe, I think he's brilliant. I've managed against him. I know him well. My younger kids go to the same school, and you know, when we had a few issues last year, you get the mumblings, or has he took it as far as he can, blah blah blah, this, that and the other. He's now proven again he's different class. But there is a small amount of whatever league and whatever level you're playing at can be successful. The rest have to just be not bad, ordinary, disappointing or whatever. And it's so hard, and the stress that's created by being a manager does not come anywhere near when you win. It's so much more the stress than it is to the win. So, and I was out of it. I've been out of it. You know, I had a couple of spells abroad, which I'm never going to deny. I went there for the money, but when I came back, that was it. Different life for me now, coming back to being a Newcastle supporter, going to support Bobby whenever I can in a great career that he's having.
Can you tell us where Bob's at the minute?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, it's just his team, Red Bull Salzburg, have just turned down a bid of 10 million from a club today. I'm speaking to, I get lots of, because I still have contact. The way I work, Joe, is while I was in management, I became very friendly with other managers, CEOs, owners, so across in Europe now, in the world, because when I managed abroad was the same. I've got strong relationships with owners, CEOs, managers, etc., etc. So I've got a good portfolio of people I know. Bobby has an agent who, by the way, brilliant in terms of the finances. I mean, the contract he got at Red Bull Salzburg for a 19-year-old boy is just out of this world. But I believe what I've shown in over the last few times is I have the contacts. I don't want to get involved in the agencies at all. But I do have those ins where I can go straight to an owner or a CEO or a manager.
You're his dad.
Of course, and I see it from a different point of view. So ultimately what he's done is, in a short period of time, he's a Carabao Cup winner. He's now on 6-7 starts in the Champions League. Again, in a ridiculously tough group, let's get it honest. The group consisted of Atletico Madrid, Real Madrid, Bayer Leverkusen, PSG. When you rattle them off, it's like, and they've got the youngest squad. What Red Bull Salzburg are a team, because Haaland, Salzburg, they're a club that takes young players, develops them and sells them on. Part of the process when Bobby left Liverpool for the 10 million down with the 7 million adults, when the process that they sold Red Bull to us was, they showed us their previous 150 games. Their previous 150 games had been watched by people from Barcelona, Real Madrid, Paris Saint-Germain, Bayern Munich, Borussia Dortmund, Chelsea, Manchester United, Liverpool. Liverpool have buyback clause on them as well. So this is a club where Arne Slot was brilliant. He was honest. He said he's not going to go down the clock route and play the youngsters. He's going to go for the seniors as long as they stay fit. Bobby would have ended up having to, after winning the Carabao Cup, go back to 21 level. Bobby didn't want that, first team level. Went because Pep Linders was the manager of Salzburg originally. He's now gone. And we know football changes so quickly, so it's been like, I've been involved in the last couple of days in terms of speaking to clubs, but it's just like, just text me oldest son who lives up here, and I was like, fucking hate football at times, honestly. Fucking hate it. I mean, like, just get me to fucking America where it doesn't matter, just have something like that. I'll go and drink some bleach for Donald Trump or whatever. But then you think back, it's what you've been, it's what you love, and it's just like, But it's a sensational setup. I mean, they had a winter break and played the last game on the 14th of December. Had to be back in training on the 3rd of January. And he was back home in Newcastle. And he's like, Dad, what am I going to do, blah, blah, blah. I got in touch with the CEO from Salzburg and I'm like, oh, Bobby's looking to get flights because it's difficult from Newcastle. He come back to us, he says, oh, well, we've got a private jet going to London to pick up Max Verstappen, who drives for Red Bull. And Red Bull is based in Salzburg. The actual main building is in Salzburg. So he said, what we'll do is we'll get the private jet to Newcastle, pick Bobby up, we'll go to London, pick Max up, Verstappen, and then we'll fly them both into. And I was like, can I fucking get a seat?
No. Private jet from Sunderland.
No, that's not the same one. No.
Definitely didn't get a fucking lift off Verstappen.
Aye. So yeah, I mean it's a great set. Jurgen's obviously back involved. Jurgen was at the club last week, so when Bobby was there was back in the big hooks. He's the head of global football for all the clubs now. So it's an unbelievable organisation. Different mentalities in terms of the different clubs. Salzburg has a different mentality to Leipzig. Leipzig has a different mentality to New York Red Bulls and the one that they own in Brazil, and they've just bought a club in Paris. But crazy organisation, the way they do things and all that. So yeah, really good.
Just saying a yes or a no, would there be a possibility before the deadline of Bobby moving?
It's hard because in the last 24 hours we've had so many things where you think it's going to happen and then it hasn't, and so many things where you think they're not interested and then they've just appeared. So I might get back in my pocket now after this and then it could be ridiculous.
Fuck me, I'm telling you, phone. We might be sitting here millionaires again.
So,
that's brilliant, though. That's brilliant stuff. Everybody sharing that with you. Come on in now. Pinky Town John Gibson. Right, well, open to the audience because that was fantastic. Open the audience. Any questions? Yes, sir. Thanks very much.
Why did they call you Nash?
What a great question.
That was a Terry Mack one. When Terry first come back to the club with Kevin, we were going on a away trip and I forgot something and I said, Terry, I might be 5-10 minutes late, I've got a Nash home, pick something. He's like, Nash, what does that mean? And then it just stuck from there.
There was nothing to do with that little cartoon character in Dennis and Menace.
No.
The fact that he did kick more than the fucking dog bit, by the way. Yes, sir.
Alex Ferguson, when he came to see you down on Saturday morning, what happened?
He just said that they would like to sign us, and my dad said,
would you have been on your 14th birthday around that age then?
Just before 14, and my dad was like, no good putting pitch into me. No good pitch into me, you got to pitch to the boy. And I was just like, nah, there's only one place I want to go, and that's to Newcastle. And that was what I forgot to mention when I was the England schoolboy stuff that made it national news. Newcastle were in a lot of debt, and Gordon McKee rang me and my father up when I was 15 to say they'd accepted an offer from Liverpool. Kerry Dalglish was a manager of 250,000, which was 1987 at the time, and we needed to go to keep the club afloat, and we had to go into the boardroom. But thankfully Sir John Hall got wind of this story, so his people from the Magpie Group got in touch with me and my dad and said, listen, don't be forced out the club, we're going to be buying it. The club's not going to go out of business, so and that's why we sat tight.
Yes.
You spoke about Kevin a lot. It's well known that he was quite ruthless at times. How did you get him back on side after Southampton?
That's a great question. For anyone who doesn't know, it was not a lot of live games at the time, but this was Super Sunday. Came in half time and basically had a pop at Rob Lee. It was me and Rob Lee in midfield that afternoon to start helping me, because I was the only one doing any good in the midfield. And about 20 minutes later my number popped out the toaster, And I remember walking off and Peter grabbed us, Peter Beardsley, because he knew what I was like, and he's like, just be calm. I didn't heed his words as I walked off. I booted the old medical bucket that was steel, that nearly broke me toe. And I was effing and jeffing at Kevin in the Dell at the time. The dressing rooms were in the corner, and I went to go down there, and Kevin chased after us. I think my dad would have basically smacked me arse for misbehaving. And we busted then because Kevin didn't believe in the fly and stuff. I think we'd had a couple of flights to some games. We hadn't got results, and he decided on busting. And on the way back, about 10 minutes before getting into Durham to pick up our cars, he sent Terry down to see how to play in the reserves that following night at Leicester. Done that. I went to see him before the bus left for Leicester with the reserves, and he just basically said, no, Nash, I'm not prepared to see you. So I knew there was a problem then. So on the way down, I'm thinking, well, I'm in a bit of pressure. So I rang the press officer and said, I need to do something. I need to go in the public domain with the media, written press and TV, and apologise to Kevin, my teammates, but more importantly, the fans. And I think that's what basically saved it, because I'd done that, because a day later I got us in the office and said I would be up for selection for the Wimbledon League game. I'd missed the Wimbledon Cup tie on the Wednesday. That was my punishment, I wasn't involved. Coley came out fighting for us as well, he didn't play. We lost in the Cup on the Wednesday 2-1, then we played them in the league on the Saturday and beat them 4-0. Me and Coley were reinstated, he scored 2 and I assisted both the goals. So yeah, I think that was it. If I hadn't have done that, I would have been gone earlier than I did.
Hey, we've had some great players from Sunderland, and you were brilliant for Sunderland, but after the t-shirt, what were they like for you after that?
So what were the fans like after the t-shirt, Nash?
I don't know, I've never been back.
Apart from beating them.
Actually went back once, and it was, unfortunately, I was at Tyne and we had derby, and it was one of Sam Allardyce's first games for Sunderland. They ended up beating us 3-0, I think, at the Stadium of Light. So it wasn't a great return. It was funny because the car that pulled into the car park at Sunderland, I got out, and Alan Thompson's sister is a police officer, and I just hears this voice say, "Are you taking a piss?" And I looks up, and it was her, it was Jane, and it was Alan's sister, working, and she said, "Don't expect me to fucking look after you the day by the way." And that was the first time I'd been back, but thankfully there was no repercussions. So.
Lee, you touched on the Grimsby game earlier, the night we won the league down there. I was at that game, and you took me Newcastle bucket hat off us. I just wondered if you still had it now.
For those who was at the back, this gentleman had a bucket hat and he nicked it off him. He wants to know if he's still got that.
Fucking hell, I hope I have, because that would be worth a right few quid now, wouldn't it? Jesus.
We man at the back, stand up, sir.
So wait there. So was that when you came on the pitch, or was after the game, or?
It was the end of the game when you came down the away end.
Away end, yes.
Well, you know yourself, there was scarves and all
Yeah.
was getting loved on there.
Because what I did do with a lot of stuff, you know, they had the museum in Newcastle, and I did put a lot of stuff in there, including my championship medal. So I put a lot of stuff in there, but with stuff like that, wow, because was that 30 years ago? Over 30 years ago. Wow, that could be worth a few quid now.
That's why I'm asking if you still got it.
I fucking might look at me mum's cupboards now. Might make us a few quid. You know, because you touch on that, you know, and you know they brought out the Granda shirt again in the club shop. So I was like, I've got nothing in my house. I'm thinking, Jesus, I've got no memorabilia. So I'm like, Mum, have you got any of my shirts? Oh, loads, son. Yeah. No, not me dress shirts, me football shirt. Aye. So she goes in this bag, in this cupboard, and she says, and she gets out this big bag, grandma shirts, cloth, 10, the black and white, the red, and I'm putting it on, I'm thinking, fucking hell, iconic, they're just reselling them, and people are saying, oh, well, they're contacting us on Instagram, we'll give, oh, no, not gonna. Even Kenneth Shepherd, son of Freddie, he was like, Lee, I'm wanting to try and collect all the lads from that era, all their jerseys. And I'm saying, fuck that, Kenneth, no chance. It's just getting from my kids and grandkids. But sometimes you forget, don't you? I mean, like I was telling you about Terry Mack, all his trophies collection in shoe boxes and all that. So yeah, like I said that, sometimes the only thing with the ball from Wembley, the Hattrick ball, my mum's got like a little cabinet in our little place where she lives in Wallsend. When it's at the front and I walk in and the ball's there, but there's one or two. She's got trophies from like Wallsend Boys Club under 9s and under 8s, and I'm thinking, then I say, Ma, now them shirts that I played in the Champions League with, oh, is that them ones with the stars on? Aye, where are they? Oh, they're in a bin bag in there and all that. But she's got me Wallsend Boys Club under 9 trophies on that show. Brilliant, man. Yes, we man.
Who is the best player you ever swapped shirts with?
Swap shirts with? Ooh. Well, the best player I played against, and thankfully I did swap shirts with him because he was an absolute legend, was Zinedine Zidane.
I hope your mother's got that one.
Aye. No, I've got that one. Aye, he was a phenomenal footballer, so I played against him for Juventus in Europe, and a ridiculous footballer, brilliant. Do you know who he is? He's an icon, probably because he's an icon on FIFA. That's how my son and youngest son work it out now. They don't know who I am, but they know because they're icons on FIFA. Go on, Paul.
You alluded to obviously having a good spell before Peter Beardsley come back in, and it's obviously introduced you into thinking of playing elsewhere. Did you not want to continue playing for Newcastle and try and earn your place?
Well, listen, I had done it, I'd fought over many years, because if you remember, I was a youth player who'd come through, and when the managers are signing these top players, I had to carry on to get to the next level and the next level and the next level, because what Kevin was continually doing, he was brilliant at every player I brought in improved the team. So I was having to continually raise my game, and I felt I was doing that. But sometimes when you get to the stage where you're playing at a high level, but then you can still be left out, you think, well, there's no, don't get us wrong, this was, for me to have done what I've done at this football club, I lived the dream. And if that had stopped at that club, yeah. But ultimately, you have responsibilities. You've got children, you've got a wife, you've got kids, you've got family. And I'd put myself in a position of, I was allowing myself to give back to my family, my mum, my dad, my brothers, my sisters, my family like that, my kids, to give them a lifestyle that we could have only dreamed of because where I'd come from. And I had to continue that. Just because I loved Newcastle United, it doesn't mean I was going to just sit there and just accept being left out at times when I didn't deserve to be. And it was all, that's what happens sometimes. It still happens now. It's happened before with local players, and I always felt as well, Kevin knew that, I won't go into names, but there was senior players that he'd left out at times that refused to be substitutes, whereas that would never have been the case with me. And so, yeah, it was, I don't think the thing was, I never wanted to stay and fight, because I always had to fight. Every season was a fight for me to go to the next level. When the next player was coming in, to go to the next level. And then I had to then make a decision, am I prepared to stay and just sit on the bench and, you know, like some players have done, like few goalkeepers have done and stuff like that.
So playing devil's advocate, right? So you've went on, you then done the move, and then you've been this big player. Then where does your drive come from, being this big player in the club you went to? So like, then what's your drive?
My drive is that I just want to be the best I can be every day. You know, what frustrates me in modern day football now, and it's not just modern day, it's been over the last few years, and I can't get my head around it when I hear these pundits and all this stuff that goes around in Sky, where, oh, the manager's upset him, so he's down tools, he hasn't tried his best. Now, I was the complete opposite. I've got OCD, by the way, so I would do things like, if I'd had a good game, you know, the previous week at St James's, I had to remember the way I drove in. The road, the complete route, I would drive the same. And I've had loads of fallouts with managers, by the way. When I was a manager, the one player I wouldn't want to have managed would be Lee Clark, because he's a fucking nightmare. So I've had loads of fallout with managers, but respectful fallouts, never fell out. I've never gone into a game, I've never drove to a match and thought, I'm going to fucking toss this game off so we get beat, so this manager gets a sack. And when people come out of that, or the players are down tools, the dressing room are against them, I can't register that, because my mentality was, I'm playing for you. I don't want to come and see you on a Saturday night, Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, Monday morning, and I've played poor, because I'm upset and I want to be rubbish, so the team loses, so the manager loses his job, and you come to me and you go, you bump into us in the supermarket, you bump into us in the pub, you bump into us in the restaurant, you bump into us in the street, you go, fuck me Clark, you were rubbish yesterday. That would break me heart. But this is what you're getting now. You get this mentality. Oh, they've down tools. He's lost the dressing room. And it's because you're allowing them to do this. It shouldn't, it doesn't matter. You've had a fallout with your manager. You're all in different industries. You have a fallout with your boss. It doesn't mean you go and do your job worse just because the difference was when I was playing, it wasn't the managers getting the finger pointed at them, it was the players. Under Kevin Keegan, in 5 years in the Premier League, we lost 5 home games. We were distraught when we lost them games. And if we had a bad run where we went 2 or 3 games without a win, it was never the manager getting the critics off you fans or the media or whatever. It was us, the players. But it's flipped on its head. Now, because managers don't get, some are lucky to get 6 games. You look at some of the clubs now, and the change manager. It doesn't bother me. Look at Man United. It doesn't bother us. We got no interest in Man United. We're actually happy with how they're going. But how many managers have they had? It's the same group of players.
Yeah.
I like the new guy. I like his honesty, because he's basically saying, no, you're not doing your job. You're not training hard enough. Your attitude's wrong. Look at Marcus Rashford. He's earning £375,000 a week. That's just like, it's gobbledygook. It's crazy in this world that we're living in, right? There's a crisis of funds in the country. Here's a kid, a Manchester-born lad from the academy, earning that amount of money, and the manager's calling him out for his attitude and his application and training. He should be actually embarrassed. Actually embarrassed. If that was any, all I ever say to Bobby, right? I never say do this, do that. My only text to Bobby before any game, league games, Carabao Cup finals, Champions League, only thing I put, make sure you're the hardest working player on the pitch. I can't decide if you're going to be the best player technically, if you're going to be the best player tactically. Make sure, whoever your fans are, whichever club you're at, they can never question your work ethic. And if they kind of question your work ethic, you've done your job. Everyone can have a bad day. In sport, your touch is bad, your passing's bad, you're a goal scorer, your finishing's off, your defender, your defending's off, you're a goalkeeper, you haven't held the ball. But as long as you give everything that you've got, that's all I ever say to them. In a text before a game, Real Madrid, when I was there the other week, make sure you're the hardest working player. That's it.
Swap shirts with Bellingham.
Eh?
Swap shirts with Bellingham.
Oh well, we know, Jude, because that was my last act. That was my, no one remembers that. My last act as Birmingham manager, I made Jude sign for Birmingham instead of Villa's Academy.
Yes, lad.
Ladies and gentlemen, Lee Clark, everybody, put your hands together. Absolutely fantastic. What a wonderful night. Thank you very much. Thanks to our sponsors. Have a safe journey. We'll beat them tomorrow. It's his old club, but thanks very much again. And Steve, thanks for putting the gig on again. Big round of applause for Steve Braith, everybody.
Hey.
And then